Good morning, everyone. How is everybody?
Awake and ready.
Yay. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming today. Happy Divine Valentine's Day. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Nayaswami Gangamata, and this is Nayaswami Daiva, and it's our joy to be here. We welcome visitors from afar. We welcome people that have just moved here. We welcome people that have come back, and so it's just a really fun day together. We'd like to begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. This is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems. And Yogananda said, if you want to know me, read my whispers. And this is number 139. So let's take a moment and just roll the shoulders back again. Our topic is love today and divine friendship. And listen for these words coming from your own heart. Thy gentle voice saying, come home, I often heard, but through many lives it was drowned in the tumult of my wild cravings. I have forsaken the jostling crowds of desire. In the solitude of my mind, my devotion burst to hear thy voice. Take away every dream memory of earthly sounds that yet lurks in my mind. I want to hear thy still voice, ever singing in the silence of my soul. This reading reminds me that there's so many layers in our search for God. On a deep level, our soul calls to us, return to stillness where you belong, right? But we allow ourselves to be drawn out by the noise and the excitement of the world. And then that call becomes a dim memory, doesn't it? While we pursue the more immediate concerns and interests, finding a good job, a lovely home to live in, the perfect companion, a happy family, a secure bank account. Speaking of security, which is our affirmation today, a young naval student was being questioned by his sea captain. And he asked him, he said, what would you do if a storm suddenly sprung up starboard? And he said, I would throw out an anchor, sir. And the sea captain said, well, what if another storm sprang up aft? And the young student said, well, I would throw out another anchor, sir. And then the sea captain said, well, what if another terrible storm sprang up on the forward? I don't know the positions on a ship. And the young student said, well, I'd throw out another anchor, sir. And the sea captain says, whoa, wait a minute. Where are you getting all your anchors from? And the young man said, well, the same place you're getting your storms from. Well, and then even coming to the path, right? We can forget that call to go, that call, even coming onto the path, we can forget that call to stillness. And what happens as our reading was talking about is that we can hold on to those outer observances, those outer rituals, and we can become just focused on them, and we forget to take them deeper. And Yogananda brought us the teachings of self-realization. He brought us the teachings of meditation, of yoga, so that we can go beyond and beneath the surface, and so we can go deeper with our practices. I was remembering growing up Catholic, and I was so focused. There's so many ceremonies and rituals you do. Your first communion, your first confirmation, your first but not last confession. There's so many things that you do, and I remember being so concerned, am I doing these rituals correctly? I was so concerned about the surface. I was just on the surface, not knowing that I could go deeper through those ceremonies and have a deeper experience. And Yogananda, again, brought us these invaluable teachings. He shows us how to take them deeper. Of course, it's through the stillness where we can feel the qualities of spirit, where we can experience the qualities of God. And of course, love is the topic today. But I was thinking of Ananda Yoga. It's not a flow yoga. It's not a sleepy time yoga. It's what we do. In between the poses, we pause. We focus on that. So we have a chance to take the experience of doing those poses deeper in our practices. And that's what we're just reminded today. Don't stop on the surface, regardless of where you are on the path and what you're doing. Remember to take them deeper through the practice of meditation, through the practice of yoga. Look beneath the surface. There's a beautiful story in Yogananda's book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, a story that was told by Leo Tolstoy about 3 hermits that lived in a very remote and small island. And they were very simple, and They were saying a very simple prayer. We are three, thou art three, have mercy on us. And when the bishop found out that they were saying this very simple prayer, he said, this is not right, this is not dignified. I'm going to go and teach them this prayer. So he went to the small island and he began to teach them. And the three hermits, they were so grateful. I mean, what a beautiful attitude. They were just so grateful that he came and he was showing them and they were doing their best to learn them. And the bishop felt like they really got it. So as he was leaving the island on a small boat, he could see a light behind him. And he sees the three hermits holding hands, and all around them is this glorious light. And then the three hermits are yelling at the bishop, "Bishop, we forgot the prayer. Please come back." And the bishop turns around, he sees this light, he goes, my three friends, you don't need to know this prayer. Keep doing what you're doing. Again, it's such a beautiful story. Again, keep doing what you're doing. And remembering that it's wonderful to have the affirmation of security tied in today, because nothing is secure, is it, in this world? Everything changes. Things will betray us, things will happen. But underneath, remembering to hold on to God's presence. And the only way to do that and to know that is to have that regular and deep practice. Okay, we say that regular and deep. It's important to have a regular practice, but then to take it deeper, to stretch ourselves. You know, Yogananda would say 1 time a week, have a longer meditation. So if you meditate for 10 minutes every day, that's wonderful. See if that 1 time a week you can double that. Keep taking it deeper and deeper. And then underneath, then, you'll start to feel that love. You'll feel the joy, all those qualities of spirit that we talk about every week. Yogananda brought these teachings for us. The masters came for us, for our own self-realization, not because they needed it. They came for us. They responded to our call. Our call of aspiring love went up from earth, and you responded. And Yogananda, on the topic of Valentine's Day, I'll end here too, because Daiva will also be sharing, but Yogananda said, only love can take my place. Of all these great things that we can do in the world, what is it? It's love. I want to end with a poem of Yogananda's. It's called I Am Love, and he wrote this in 1939. I embrace the flowers of all things, blossoming in the garden of the sky, as my own loved ones, for I am love. I welcome all races, the olive, the white, the dark, yellow and red, to the home of my bosom, to live with me as my brothers, earth-born of common parents, Adam and Eve, and spirit-born of Father God. I embrace the earth, fire, water, ether, air, as my blood relations roaming through my veins. I embrace all animals, beloved atoms and energies in the temple of my life, for I am love and life itself. I love all religions. They are born of my love and wisdom. I love all humans, enemies and friends alike, for they are born of my Father's love, and I am love itself.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be sharing this time together, echoing what Gangamata said. I sent our daughter a little text this morning, and I just said, Happy Valentine's Day. Love Pops and Ma, and XOXOX ... And a while later, I got a text back saying, Happy Divine Friendship Day. We get tutored by our children. But what she was saying is so true. You know, both messages, understood rightly, held the same consciousness. But what she was saying was, you know, she's committed to making sure that no one is exempted from that sense of love. That it's not just a romantic date, which it's boiled down to across time, but St. Valentine was known as a saint of love. There's a very sweet little clip that's out on YouTube now, on Facebook, and it's a series of people, and it's classified under pranks, which I find to be mostly, when I run across those, mostly mortifying, and I just delete them, get rid of them. But this was very sweet. It was a group of about, maybe 5 or 6 young men dressed in white shirts and ties, so they were holding a presence and a consciousness. And what they would do is they would gather together and they would find somebody and set up their little camera, but they'd find somebody, and in this case, each time it was a young woman, but they would just, out of the blue, they would just come up behind her and sing her a love song and give her a flower. And every single time, I mean, many of them were, all of them were surprised. Some of them were actually strikingly surprised. It was clearly candid that they were capturing. But in each circumstance, what you saw was people went from absorbed in whatever was going on into this moment of radiant joy. And light would just pour through their countenance. And it's actually a profoundly meaningful little story that's in this, because love brings us to life. It's just that simple. And it isn't about familiarity. It isn't about physical or personal intimacy. It's about being seen. And it isn't about being perfect. It isn't about having all of your ducks lined up. You know, the very definition of creation and Maya is imperfection. You know, if you take all of creation and glom it together, you end up with a whole thing. But every part of it is missing major elements by design, by definition. And so even with ourselves and our own lives, to think that somehow we're going to get it all right so then we can be happy is a fairly futile exercise that we've been at for a very long time. But it's a very simple thing that changes the story. It's a commitment to be a channel for love. I don't have a lot to say this morning. You know, we're preaching to the choir, literally and figuratively. If you look around this room, one of the things that struck me, we've been serving now. I served here in Portland from 91 to 95, and then we've been serving here in this capacity since 2004. And one of the things that struck me and has never varied in all the years we've been around is how kind the people of Portland are. And the people of the Ananda Portland Sangha. You know, it doesn't seem to matter how deep the event or how lofty things are. The second there's a break, people gather together and they just chat as a way of connecting, as a way of sharing energy, as a way of appreciating each other and being kind and sharing light. It's one of the greatest, at that level, it's one of the greatest cities on the planet. I've never seen anything quite like it. And it's unstoppable. We actually tried for a little while to kind of dampen it so that we could have a little more stillness and stuff. And, you know, people were respectful for moments, but it didn't last. And it's because it's the nature. You know, Swami says so beautifully, he says it's the nature of joy to want to share itself. It's the nature of joy to want to share itself. I honestly believe that Portland as a city is very much in the process of fulfilling a destiny to be a city of light, as Yogananda described, a place where people live consciously, where people's behaviors and thoughts and actions and energies are connected to meaning. It's not just selfish, it's not just self-involved, it's expansive and considerate of others. It used to drive me crazy. We're getting more California, so it happens less, so it's a little less crazy-making, but it used to drive me crazy that every time I'd pull up to a stoplight, it was a negotiated process. No, you go. No, you go. You got the light, for God's sake, just move. But and people would drive, you know, again, culturally, people drive below the speed limit. Because what's the hurry? Contentment and being in a flow of life that isn't about constantly being someplace else. I believe Ananda Portland brings something to that story. I believe we help people to take the good intentions and the consideration and the efforts that they're making toward getting the details right You know, the organic gardening and the permaculture and the cob building and the community building that's all going on, and connected to something that's permanent. I remember in my own life, I remember trying to get it right. And I spent years in Beyond War and fighting against Monsanto and trying to get, and the herbicide Roundup and the casual way it was sprayed around, and, doing organic gardening and living in, natural building and all of those things. And the harder I tried, and all of those things I believed then and I still believe now are essential to how we live on this planet. They're sustainable. They have the capacity to carry us across the troubled waters that we're in, globally and locally, into a sustainable reality that has satisfaction and wholeness, not only for ourselves, but for our communities, for all of life. But I remember that the harder I tried at those things, the more empty it got, because I couldn't get it to resolve itself into a lasting condition. And it was until I found Ananda. It wasn't until I found the Autobiography of a Yogi and had a chance to dig deep into what does last, and into the experience that Gangamata was so beautifully talking about, the moments of stillness, the deep commitment and connection with spirit that sustains beyond all the changes of life, that all those things found the right way to dangle. I believe this of Living Wisdom Schools. I believe it of Ananda globally. I believe it of Ananda Portland and Laurelwood. We need environments that support us in our aspirations. It's hard. The noise of the world is calling with increasing vigor to support and endorse divisiveness and hatred and unkindness and selfishness and greed. And we need environments that help us not only remember, but to be able to deepen our commitment and experience of wholeness, of friendship, of kindness, of love, of joy, of stillness, of peace, of simplicity, of friendship. And that's what Yogananda brought, these great masters. That's what Swami Kriyananda exemplified in his life and was the seed behind the creation of Ananda Worldwide. Ananda, which became Ananda Worldwide and is continuing to become Ananda Worldwide. Mostly I'd like to say thank you this morning. Thank you for being those channels. Thank you for holding that light with each other and everywhere you go. Thank you for the kindness that you radiate and the friendship and the beauty and the simplicity that you live in. Not the simplicity of poverty and pushing away or pushing away life, but the simplicity that doesn't need anything and just revels in the presence of joy, the presence of love, the presence of kindness. Let's carry that out into the world today. Let's celebrate Valentine's Day not as something only for human lovers, but something that holds divine friendship for all of life, all of creation. God bless. Take a moment of silence.